Well, welcome everybody to Revive and Drive podcast, episode number 2. I'm Brad Larson, aka Big Trucker B, my co-host, my friend, my colleague, Charles Irby, the founder of Focus 7 LLC, and he is the SAP counselor, the one, the only, the man, the mystery, the legend. How you doing today, Charles? How's your Saturday?
I'm doing great. I went around thinking today was Sunday, and I was waiting for the game to come on until you called me and say it's time for our broadcast. Oh, it's Saturday, because there's no football on. I said, well, okay, but I'll
Who you
take it.
going
This
for?
is a great day.
Oh, it is. It is. Who you going for the Super Bowl?
Well, you get tired of seeing those guys win so much, and all the word that's going around the nation about, the refs and stuff. But
Yeah,
they are an exciting team to watch. They're a fun team to watch. They're red out there. Really, they know how to win. They do have a championship DNA. They really do.
they really do.
They
I'm
really do.
I'm an Eagles fan personally, and
Yeah.
I have always been since Donovan McNabb days.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was that was 2005 again. It was the very first Super Bowl I ever watched was the Patriots and the Eagles, and of course the Eagles lost, and they've lost more, and they've lost more. Like they've been to the Super Bowl so many times, and they just lose. They've won one Super Bowl, and I'm hoping they win, but let's be real. They're playing the Chiefs, and the
Yeah, they're
Chiefs
playing the
coach
Chiefs.
is Andy Reid. Now, Andy Reid was the Eagles' old coach as well.
Yeah.
So, man, we just went from a truck driving and SAP podcast to a football podcast real quick.
What else we gonna do? We could cover
Oh,
everything on this podcast.
absolutely.
But I had a week full of drivers that were having some frustration. It's been a frustrating month for a lot of drivers. January and February, I don't know why, but it's just going around across the nation. I've had one, and I want to talk to you about, and everybody out there, is that shy bladder thing. Have you heard about the ruling on that?
I know of people that when they get a shy bladder, like I've taken regular drug tests that wasn't trucking, and
Yeah.
It's a whole different concept. But I know with trucking it can be more serious, correct?
Yeah. Well, for a long time, the FMCSA just stayed away from it. But I've dug out some old information, and as of 2023, May of 23, which is 2 years ago, they allowed it. They allowed swabs to be used by employers, but that word hasn't gotten out yet. And there's a lot of
Really?
drivers. Yeah.
Is that
So
covered by the FMCSA regulations, or is that an employer thing?
the FMCSA has given employers authority to do it. Use a swab as long as they meet certain criteria, like the testing of the swab has to be in place and other things. And I dig out the report when I can. But yes, so all of these CDL drivers that get violations, and a lot of drivers does have that condition. It's a real medical condition, shy bladder, and there's other things attached to it. And there's other things that I think, just come to think of it, you are going to sound off on this one because you're familiar with this as far as going into drug labs to take your required drug screen. And maybe some personnel in the lab made people feel uncomfortable. You probably heard about those situations where
Can't say I have.
Okay.
That's pretty interesting, to be honest.
Yeah, I get this as a SAP. I get told this a lot.
Actually, Charles, you know what? Now that you mention it, I've had a situation where I was uncomfortable one time with how it was an observed test I had to take.
Observed test.
And I was in Chicago at one of the clinics, right? And the guy said, "All right, trousers down,
right,
underwear too." So I'm butt ass naked. He's standing behind me, like, okay, what are you doing, bro? And then he hands me a cup and he says, "All right, I want you to bend slightly forward, grab the table." I'm like, what? And then he hands me the cup, and then he gets over the side and just starts looking at me, right at my junk, and then says, "All right, pee." Like, that's a little excessive So yeah, okay. I almost forgot about that. I should have.
Yeah, I get that a lot. It just to talk about it is uncomfortable, as you know. Uh,
Yeah.
I hear a lot of different instances where sometimes it's even women, and the man ain't exactly too excited about that,
Mhm.
and she's ordering him around, and it's supposed to be same sex, typically that's the way it should
That's
be.
yeah. I think that's the law, right?
Yeah, and the driver, the male, can pretty much tell that this person is just having fun.
Mm.
And there's also, when there is same sex um coordination, I get uh, calls from drivers that they get shy bladder because they know that there's alternative lifestyle person, and they are maybe up to something that kind of offends them, some voyagerism, or and I guess I stopped right there. But things like this cause a lot of uncomfortability with drivers when they go into these stalls to do a observed test, and they only tell me, Mr. Charles, you know
Yeah, I think something like that definitely needs to be like talked about more. That's
yeah,
it is disturbing, and it's kind of like a silent underground like secret in a way.
yeah.
You know that's wild. Now to go back to what you're talking about before the mouth swab, um, I want to know is how they say that the hair follicle that you might take, a company can require it as a policy, but it
Yes.
is not required by the FMCSA or does not count really as a failure if somebody fails a hair follicle. If they fail the mouth swab, can that count as a failure to the FMCSA to get you in the clearinghouse?
I will suspect yes. I'm going to look more into it, but
Okay.
if they're going to allow for people that have conditions that they have to have a mouth swab, then they have to attach. In fact, they have it right here. It's called oral fluid drug testing. That's what it's called,
Mhm.
and they will have the authority to post it on the clearinghouse if it comes up with it.
Because I
You
know I find it, you know, interesting that, urine is the only way that, the FMCSA has kind of cleared. I mean, and now I'm kind of hearing about this new information about the mouth swabs, but you don't really hear about it too much. It's always just a UA.
Mhm.
So I'm surprised they don't do more. I mean, there was a lot of talk about hair follicles and trying to make that an FMCSA requirement, but there's a lot of discrepancies against that, and
Yeah, yeah,
and there there's a lot of debate. Sure, it might be the most accurate thing, but how are you going to put somebody in the clearinghouse that might have did something 3 or 4 months ago and probably didn't even have a CDL at the time, right? Like maybe they're,
yes.
and now you're going to put
Talk
them in the
about it,
clearinghouse.
Brad. You nailed it right there. That's the court case right there. What you
Mhm.
just mentioned, at least in my mind, they wasn't even a driver yet. How are you
Yeah,
gonna hold that history against them?
exactly. But yeah, I think I wouldn't be opposed to mouse swabs. I mean, they stay in this. I think a mouse swab is what 24 to 48 hours though. It's like because typically a drug test for like weed can go from, depending on how much you use, is about 48, I'm sorry, 72 hours for like maybe a hit, all the way to a week to even 4 weeks
Hmm.
for heavy
Hmm.
usage, even longer sometimes.
Yeah,
So mouth
yeah,
swab, I feel like can also catch that, and any type of
yeah.
drug, it's same. So I wouldn't be opposed to seeing them implement that in a clearinghouse situation if our information is correct, if that's
Yeah, if
a
this
thing.
information is correct, so far it looks like it. It says right here the U.S. Department of Transportation plans to amend the transportation rules to allow oral fluid testing, which is mouth swabs. The new
Interesting.
ruling would not forbid urine testing, but would allow employers the choice to use between the two methods. So it's up to the employer.
I wonder if it's cheaper.
It should be cheaper also because of just the equipment is a lot less to use, and it's
Mhm.
maybe be more it is going to be more affordable and probably even quicker. It says here it cuts down on the cheating as it is directly
So
observed.
Okay, see
So they
that
could just
there's a positive right
there's
there.
a positive.
Okay.
So that takes away all that stuff we were just
Yep.
mentioning. While most urine collection goes unobserved due to the employee privacy concerns.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so it's gonna it may help, especially if it's gonna probably allow law enforcement to do a drug test right there on the street, right there on the
Well,
road.
it's funny that you said that. I'm gonna pull it up here. I got something for you real quick. You might have heard Michigan started giving law enforcement the oral fluid drug testing on the roadside.
Mhm.
Basically, you know how they have the breathalyzer for alcohol. Now, if you get pulled over for suspected DUI, DWI, they
Yes.
do the oral fluid. So, and that could be pretty common, like for truck drive. I think that could be an okay thing for all over the country.
Hmm.
But just to my audience knows, I don't know too much about the oral. I've not looked into it. Like it's not talked about a lot of the pros and cons of it. Like, can it come up with a false positive? And you say it's more,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, so they had two phases. They had the let's see, phase one of the oral fluid roadside analysis pilot program provided valuable data on overall performance and utility of roadside oral fluid instrument. However, the data set for the drug classes were not large enough to achieve a high confidence level in the obtained result. In December of 2018, the Michigan legislature approved the expansion of the oral fluid roadside analysis pilot program. The purpose of phase two was to collect and analyze additional data to better evaluate the roadside oral fluid test instrument.
Hmm.
And the expanded oral fluid roadside analysis pilot program will be referred to as phase two throughout the report.
It looks like they are not capturing any more positives than normal as far as what I see here. It
Yeah.
looks like it's about the same, but it's more convenient for people that want to offer the test. There's no big discrepancy in information we're getting now.
Yeah, and I don't see why they can't make this a normal thing, and sounds like they are. So, basically, if this is going to be, I think this could be a positive for the oral fluid until we see something negative, like we could see with the hair follicle,
Hmm.
or the UAs, and even the UAs have their downside. The oral fluid could be the next thing for drug testing,
It
and
is. It is.
it won't make people feel uncomfortable, doing that.
And plus, with testing with an oral swab, just uh, placing it in their mouths, the drivers is very fast. It can be done anywhere.
And
There's going to be some
no adult
objections. Yeah.
no adultering it either. Oh, my mouth is
Oh,
dry.
right, right. Things like that. And plus, it's going to be very quick,
Hmm.
and then you get the results immediately. So me and Brad right now are talking about things like this because this may be the future of truckers as far as the drug testing. So everybody better listen. And all the truckers out there, and the SAPs out there also. This may be the future. So you might want to look at this broadcast. Oral swabs will change the game. It
Hmm.
will be immediate. It'll be on site.
Yeah.
They can take you out of that truck,
and,
right
and
there.
it's already happening in states like Michigan.
Mm,
And I'm sure there's other states that are doing it, but Michigan is the most popular one for it right now. So,
wow, wow. So things will really get tightened up. And
yeah.
there's always, the thought of just off the top of our head, there's a means to an end for this. Are they going to try to use this politically? You know, once the states gather more and more information and start, compiling it. Now there's going to be some legislation, and something is going to hit the fan.
So I got a conspiracy, maybe.
Yeah, let's hear it. That's what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about.
With the all right. This is kind of all right for the listeners. It's just fun. All right, this is just
Yeah,
an idea.
we're just playing,
What
folks. We're just playing.
just playing. All
Just
right.
hang in there with us.
What if now that Elon Musk is
Yeah.
part of Doge, and now there's a shortage of truck drivers. They're they're trying to weed out more drivers with the whole drug testing and make a weed legal, but they're not. They're kind of holding it off. So what if it's just to push self-driving trucks forward quicker?
Whoa, no.
Because Elon does the self-driving cars kind of, and Waymo and all them.
You're trying to get us taken off the air, aren't you? Wow, that.
Hey, real quick, if I end up, I do not want to wish myself any harm. If I go missing, guys, like this is a problem. Send help immediately.
Yeah. Identify my body if I'm floating down the river, please.
They're gonna be listening like this. These guys are onto us, and they were just talking. What the heck just happened here?
Well, I just seen some information about them. I think it was you that showed me the driverless trucks that's already in play, and they look nice.
They're getting more, they're getting more advanced. They're getting crazy advanced. And then there was a video that was shared a couple years ago or was it last year? No, I think it was about 2 years ago. That was when I was driving. They had a self-driving truck that got pulled over by DOT, and a lot of the questions is, all right, well, if a self-driving truck gets pulled over by DOT, how are they going to do the inspection? How are they going to show the paperwork? Right. All that. Get this. They have somebody with a computer, basically wherever, monitoring it, and then everything's on the side. And I'm going to pull that up for our viewers here. If you guys
all the information could be scrolled across a screen. Is that what you're saying?
It's like you ever go to a bank and they have that little like thing that they send down in the vacuum, and it's kind of like that, like in a little glass or like casing. Yeah,
be limited to just the trailers, stuff like that. I think that is coming, and it's coming very fast because of AI. AI is doing some things now that in just about maybe 2 years from now, things will not look the same in so many areas, and it's going to involve truck driving heavily, where there might be somebody at a central broadcasting point, just a centralized point, just distributing transportation, which is really wild. And the human element should always be in transportation. They can't take us out. But I guess they're moving in that area.
I think everything is. I mean, you ever go to a McDonald's and you see, all the touch screens, or even Walmart, like everything is just automation overload, and it kind of sucks. I mean, it's taking away jobs.
It is. There's a bank that's now totally has no personnel. I think it's
really
in Atlanta. Yeah, it's all touchscreen banking, totally. So we're moving in that area, and when transportation moves in that area, people are moving out. The human element is moving out. Therefore, it could be quickly taken over by any outside entity, and transportation doesn't need that right now. Transportation is one of the most vital areas worldwide. I want to advocate for truckers to continue on as long as they can. The human element, as long as we can, to have this, to totally automate the human beings out of trucking can send a lot of dangerous future signals.
And like we've talked about last episode, the influx of drivers nowadays, it's also caused a panic in pay. Trucking, it can be a lucrative and high paying career, but at the same time, when you get all the people on YouTube talking about how great it is and awesome, and then you get more people wanting to get in, I feel like there's another conspiracy, is just my opinion, that the American Trucker Association is the one that started the whole trucker shortage. The American Trucker Association is also pretty much sponsored, or not sponsored, but they're a collaboration of like mega carriers like Werner, Swift Knight, all the big guys, right? And they're needing drivers that they can get, the starter drivers, and they want to fill those trucks because they buy so many of them. So they're putting this information out. But again, when there's more drivers, there's less demand for them, which means they don't need to pay as much. When there's less drivers, then they need to throw out more money to get more drivers.
Yeah.
It's a fluctuating scale. Anyway, I found that video. Wanted to show you about
Okay.
the self-driving truck and show our audience if they haven't seen it. It was in 2022. That's why it took me so long to find it. Oh, that was way off of my time. Let's see.
It's almost 3 years old, which means it's coming into play.
Yeah. All right.
One of these remaining capabilities is emergency vehicle interactions.
Emergency vehicle interactions require a multi-step process for autonomous trucks. We collaborated closely with state and local law enforcement agencies, including the Texas Department
see
of
the
Public
little,
Safety and the Travis County
little
Sheriff's
thing on the side of
Office,
it?
to
little
develop our
screen?
emergency vehicle interaction capability. Law enforcement always needs to be able to stop a commercial vehicle to ensure compliance with trucking regulations, whether it's autonomous or not. Now, we're excited to show how it works in the real world.
So here it goes.
For this
So there's a little
demonstration,
screen
Embark
on the
worked with
side of
law
it.
enforcement on a local Texas highway
Let's
to
do,
execute a
I'll
pullover.
fast forward it here real quick.
Of caution and have the truck pull over. Next, the law enforcement officer approaches the truck just like they would during a normal stop. If the officer is not yet aware that the truck is an autonomous vehicle, a screen on the side of the truck clearly indicates that the vehicle is autonomous and that the autonomous system is disengaged and the vehicle is safe to approach.
And there it
a
is.
lockbox containing registration and bill of lading is installed behind the passenger side door and includes a phone number to call the remote guardian operator and access the code for the lockbox. At this stage, the officer is able to access the lockbox and check paperwork. Upon confirming any information, or in the unusual case of issuing a citation, the officer can close the lockbox and return to his or her vehicle. If necessary,
I honestly, Charles,
Who are they going to give the ticket to?
they're gonna put it back in, but honestly, I feel like it just put more work on the officer. Like, kind of. I mean, it could be a safety thing. Like,
Yeah,
you get those
yeah.
crazy drivers that's gonna be like, "Oh, you're gonna give me a ticket," and try to go crazy. But at the same time, it's like, the officer could be like, "Oh, it's one of these self-driving things. God, now I gotta call them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be placed on hold with the elevator music till I get somebody to answer to get this code, to get the documents. Like, everyone's time matters. These police
I
are going
can
to be
hear the
waiting.
theme from I can hear the theme now from what Elroy the Jetsons. Here comes Elroy.
Like, they're going to be they're going to be sitting there just on hold.
There, Judy. Yeah. Oh,
and
man.
then they're going to get a call, and it's like, I'm still waiting on my code. Like, they're going to get like an emergency call or see a wreck, and then they're going to have to leave. Like, and then the funniest thing about the whole thing is they're all like, on the unusual case that the truck will get a ticket. No, that's not unusual. Go to the banning scale in California. They will get a ticket. I don't care how new the truck is. They will get it. And any driver listening will know what I'm talking about.
Yes. All you drivers out there, you know exactly what's up with that. And it's just, I guess we got to get used to it. Have somebody at a centralized point operating all these autonomous vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, I guess there's employment there, but is it going to pay as much?
Yeah, exactly.
Can SAP drivers do it?
Exactly. Everybody's going to have to be concerned about this in the future. Who's going to be an advocate for the drivers concerning this? It's going to, we really don't want the human element out of transportation. We just don't.
No, and even in if you look at like pilots, right? Pilots, they have autopilot, right? They fly planes, but there's still 2 pilots, sometimes even 3, depending on how big the aircraft is. And heck, the military might even there's always somebody there behind the wheel or behind the yoke, or I don't care how much technology you have in a vehicle or aircraft or anything, shit breaks.
Yeah.
It breaks.
Exactly.
Like things happen, you're gonna need someone there,
Just go ahead and have an autopilot for the truck, but also have that driver, that CDL driver in there to take it off of autopilot when it gets into cities and traffic and trying to get directly into a destination. Have more control with a real CDL driver than
Yep.
with an autopilot. I would like to see maybe 30% when it's just hauling ass down the freeway. Yeah. But other than that, no, have
Uh,
that man and woman running and not controlling that rig.
Do you think that like they go too far with the refusal stuff?
Well,
Um,
it's from the
it's hit or
standpoint
miss.
of a SAP and the refusals, they just have it right there in our documentation that we have to go by it. But there's refusals are a strange area because there's so many uh, areas you could just creep into if you
Mhm.
feel like treating that particular person that way. It's a lot of leeway they give the labs with refusals, and refusals are something that um, are used against drivers sometime. Now, I'm not an advocate for drivers or SAPs or anybody. As a SAP, I'm just a gatekeeper
Mhm.
for to make sure that things are balanced out there. I don't tilt one way or another. But as a SAP, I'm on the firing line with drivers right there. It's on the line of scrimmage, and I see it every day. I have to talk to employers every day and talk to my drivers every day, and everybody else in between. And I see this thing going on, Brad. And refusals are something that the it's so it's it can be so complicated and so it can be something that can start World War III with drivers that the FMCSA just said, we're going to go ahead and consider refusals a positive. It's just
Uh,
too many moving parts with refusals. Just consider it a positive. You smoke some weed, that we'll consider it like that. Yeah.
So here's my thing though. There's one out of the whole code in the article was it 40.61a
Mhm.
section 5, so it'll be 40.193 section D2, failure to provide a sufficient amount of urine. Now I see it also says or oral fluid when directed. Okay, maybe I might answer my own question, but can you imagine just going there and just like you can't pee, but you have to get it done, and
Mhm.
you get a refusal because you can't get that much out, like, and I think that comes with the shy bladder thing, right?
Yeah, it comes under that shy bladder thing. And so they just feed you water and give you a 3-hour window to set in
Mm.
there and get yourself ready and just tank yourself with water, And a lot of drivers still can't do it just by the thought of they got to hurry up and force some urine
Mhm.
out of them, which makes it harder to urinate.
Yep.
So it's a human condition that works against drivers, or it'll work against anybody that's in that condition, in that predicament. But that's what's expected. And if they close shop and you still haven't get your sample, that's a refusal. You know,
Mhm.
uh, it's something that really the Department of Transportation don't want to talk about because it's too complicated and too many moving parts in that. So they just have to do a blanket. It's a refusal. Just make it a blanket refusal. You know,
Yeah.
and he can at least not have the stigma personally with his employer that knows him that he
Mhm.
got drugs and alcohol in his system. But as far as the FMCSA, he could be on heroin.
Yeah.
A violation is a violation.
Period. In the store. That's
In the
how it
store,
is.
yes.
That's the simple fact of it. So after a violation, Charles, what do they need to do to prepare for their violation
Well,
when they try to find
when
a
they
SAP driver or a
yeah
SAP
when they,
counselor?
when they get a violation, it has to go through the channels of being reported either the employer or the DER, or sometimes the lab. They will go ahead and just report it to the clearinghouse. And once it's on the clearinghouse, it's pretty much in concrete. Uh,
Mhm.
a lot of drivers know that it wasn't done correctly, and I'm not advocate for anybody, as a SAP. No, um, but drivers appear to get the short end of the stick sometimes. In my experience, sometimes they do, and they have to just go with the violation. There's nothing really they can do about it. Uh, once it's in concrete, once it's posted, you can get an attorney to try to fight it. Most attorneys know that a violation is it, and if they take the case, they kind of just want to take your money. And this is just my opinion. It's not the law, but just things from my experience. And so it's in there, and it's checked, and it's terrible, and drivers really suffer behind this, you know. And but they have to deal with it. Now, as far as the clearinghouse, they have to go through it as if they smoked weed or got found with drugs in their system.
Now, you and I had an experience a few years ago. It could have been very detrimental to your name, to your character. I had, when you and I met, I wanted to bring you onto the channel and help drivers out there that failed a drug test, and we ended up helping a lot. I felt like we brought in, you got a lot of people, back on the road, but you also had scammers.
Yes.
We had a situation where a driver somehow thought he called you or was talking to you. I think he was just texting, which you prefer people to call you, correct? Like,
yes.
If they absolutely face to face, voice to voice, like it's the best way. And I have the video up on my YouTube and the text messages, but this scammer was pretending to be Charles and pretty much asked for the money and then just kind of ghosted him. That's not you, Charles.
No.
What when somebody's trying to get a SAP counselor, which I again highly recommend Charles, but if you're looking around, if you're trying to find cheaper's not always better. He's probably the cheapest you'll find.
Yes.
But what are you looking for to make sure you're not getting scammed?
Well, if you ask for me on the clearinghouse, or put my name in, you get a violation. It gets posted. You can select a SAP. You can put my name in, Charles Irby, ERBY. You'll see all my information come up. I'm a federal SAP. I'm not regional. I'm a federal SAP.
Which means you go into California, because I get a lot of people asking about California.
Yes.
I don't know what's the deal with that, but yes, all 50 states.
All 50 states.
We need to let everybody know, Charles, this is going to be for a highlight. This is for our short right now. Charles Irby, Focus 7 LLC covers all 50 states. If you need a SAP counselor that will cover you in your state, he's the man to do it. Plain simple.
It's because of the particular certification I got. I'm an international certified alcohol drug counselor. I'm not a CAC, which is alcohol. What is a CAC? Alcohol drug counselor is what I am. A CAC is a chemical addiction specialist or something like that, and they're regional. Regional, but I'm national. In fact, now that I got the I in front of it, I'm international, which means I can practice in China, but they don't need me out there. I'm not going to do it.
That's still crazy. Like, wow.
International. But I think they will use us just mostly as consultants, but also Israel, a lot of places in Europe. So I'm international, and I believe they gave that designation more with Canada and Mexico. So the whole North American block will be taken by us.
You got that shit.
You
own it. Yeah. Now, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Well, you go ahead on that.
No, I was just reiterating. Basically, you go into the SAP, one of the clearinghouse. You type in, find a SAP, type in your name, and it has all your certifications that proves you are legit.
Right there. That proves it. I would have to be registered with the clearinghouse as an SAP in order to have that come up. Otherwise, nothing will come up. And that's how you drivers can make sure that they're getting a real SAP and not being scammed by somebody that just took their money and don't hear from them anymore. And this has been prevalent for a while. People that really know how to manipulate the system.
Yeah.
So, and
And do you feel that people get worrisome because, like, you know, we're living in the digital age of money with Cash App,
yeah,
Zelle,
yeah,
Venmo, all that. Like, nothing's paid in cash anymore. Do you think that people get kind of like skeptical? Oh, you want me to
yeah.
Cash App you, Zelle you? Like, how do you reassure them that, like, listen, your money's safe. I promise you're getting the service you paid for.
Yeah.
I personally,
Yeah.
I can answer that with, it's your reputation. You can find you, but what else would you have to say for that?
Well, you will know and see that all my credentials will come up on the screen once you put my name in. And
Mhm.
also, as far as anything like that, I do have a website.
So yeah, when we look at your website here, Charles,
Mhm.
we look at the education or treatment plan. What is that about?
Well, we want to go ahead and first start with the quick assessment. And the assessment uh, will tell me what degree of involvement with drugs and alcohol my driver has. Is it an addiction, or is it just possibly when addiction, there's two parts. Is it abuse, or is it just playing around with it?
Mhm.
So I have to ascertain that, and also what they call it, a chronically used person. And typically my drivers aren't in that particular area, is they just getting high. So
Mhm.
so I will go ahead and
Partying for the weekend.
yeah, that's
Which,
typically what it is.
bad mistake. If you're a truck driver, just say goodbye to your weekends.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So they just have it in that particular wheelhouse of just having a little fun, but it's not chronic or acute.
Mhm.
So this is a drug and alcohol speak right now.
Yeah.
So I will move on to the particular prescription for them. And a lot of times, what really works is we have a conversation and we talk about. I don't do this with every driver, but drivers that my spidey sense tells me to do it, I will have a conversation, Brad, and we'll talk about what's going on with them. I
Mhm.
try to drill down on the particular areas of how they got that substance in their system. Was it a party? Was it were you at a hotel? I don't go into too much extravagant, but I got ways
Yeah.
of using motivational interviewing where they will give me that information,
Yep.
so I could tell exactly what was going on and make a decision on what type of treatment should be for them. And a lot of times, it's just going to be the drug and alcohol counseling
Mhm.
online. I want
And
to
then
just
you can always tell, you know, to be honest, like somebody that's seriously into addiction, and the fact that,
yes,
you know, like they went that long where, you know, they, whether they their face is shrunken in, or their eyes just always
yeah.
like whatever the drug may be, you could tell, like, it's pretty easy to see.
Well,
Um,
a lot of times with the video uh, equipment going on, the video will be very short, and then we
mhm,
got to mostly get offline and speak just over on the phone. So I can also just continue to size them up, see if that person, if they have an addiction, and typically with cocaine, when I find out the substance is cocaine, through my experience, it's a wrap. They got to go to some type of treatment. Cocaine, if they got caught with cocaine in their system, they've been using it a while. That's typically how it happens. And I asked some questions that's called sandwich questions, where I would ask a question, get an answer, and then ask the question a different way. And if I get a different answer, that sandwich is messed up. It should
all
be the
right,
same bologna and meat and cheese in the middle. They should come
yeah,
right back to what they're saying, and it's not. It's not. So a lot of times I will I will not take drivers at times when I tell them that they need to have some type of treatment. I'm not advocating for them to go into residential. That's very rare that I do that with drivers. But I do want them to go to some type of professional treatment where they got to either be with other people around in a circle or have an individual counselor. But they need to have somebody look at them in depth and get a good idea of what they're dealing with this driver. And a lot of times drivers say, "Oh, I'm not like that. I'm not that bad," and I don't take them. I tell them right
Understood.
then and there that uh, we wouldn't be a good match, and good luck to you,
Mhm.
because as a SAP, that we really have to be gatekeepers for the freeways.
Yeah.
And when somebody is using drugs and they get popped, and I get a hold of them, I can pretty much tell through experience if they're full of it or not. And if they're
Mhm.
full of it, that means they've been getting high for a while.
Yeah.
Just don't want to be honest. And
Y-
it's kind of important, Brad, that we don't have those guys on the freeways.
Oh yeah, no, it's you can
Yeah,
Google truck wreck, driver on drugs or alcohol. You see dangerous stuff all the time. What I love about your website too is the simplicity of it. You really do just break it down like you were talking about. Like step by step, from the phone assessment, the treatment plan,
yeah,
the drug screening, because you make them go take a drug test to make sure they're clean.
yes,
And then you get their driver letter, their employer letter, and then the testing schedule. And then right here, the clearinghouse. Now, if you guys are in the SAP program, or you got to be in the clearinghouse. This is what it's going to look like. This is the setup. Basically, you get a red light, yellow light, green light type deal. So you got the SAP request sent, the SAP designated, initial SAP assessment complete, which would be with you. The driver determined eligible for RTD test, which would be with you. And then that requires the driver letter, right, and the employer letter.
yes,
And
absolutely,
then
absolutely, yes.
the return to duty test with a negative result, that's the employer. And then the follow-up testing plans with the employer, correct?
That's it. That's it. It's very important that information like this be disseminated out to drivers, because they don't know anything about the SAP process. So if they
Mhm.
go out to my website, focus7.us, not .com, is .us,
US, yep.
and you'll see this.
I'll put it
And
right in the screen, right here, right in front of y'all, and I'll see if I can make it clickable for them too, right off the screen.
thanks, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
When you go through the SAP process, steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, the ones you see in red, are completed. Now you can start interviewing. You no longer have to stand down. And when you
Mhm.
get to step 5, the one that's still in green, that fifth one, well, that's the most important step, in my opinion, the return to duty step. When you get
Mhm.
hired by an employer, they will send you out for your drug screen, return to duty orientation, pre-employment type drug screen. Hopefully you come back with a negative. You will hand it to the employer. They will enter in the date of that drug screen into employer entry number 5. Now the driver moves from being prohibited to valid. And if they got downgraded, which happens back in November, remember, they get reinstated right back to
Mhm.
where they need to be to start being a CDL driver again. Step 5 just turns on all the switches and you're legal again.
Mhm.
But you have to go through 1, 2, 3, and 4 first. You have to talk to me first in order to become legal again.
I don't think people know, like every time we do a podcast, we're gonna go over this. We're gonna talk about different stuff all the time, but we are always going to, because people, like, whether they missed the last episode, the episode before, if they hear
Yeah,
this one episode, we want people to know that the information, regardless of what we're talking about. So if you hear us repeating the same stuff that we've talked about in other podcasts, understand that this is what we're about, to get the information out and make sure it's in your heads. You guys it's in your ear holes.
yeah,
I
exactly.
want this to live in there, so you
Yeah,
guys are over fluctuated with the correct information of the SAT process, not the wrong information.
in this SAP process, there's just not enough mediums out there that's getting this information out to them. It's because I'm constantly being asked this, what I just explained, you know. So
Yep.
therefore, the clearinghouse, they're doing the best they can disseminating information, but other SAPs and other people involved in the other areas, we need to get that out to drivers,
Yes.
about the SAP process and how it works and the parts and the components that's into it. Yes.
Do you talk to any other SAP counselors, or do you know anyone, their competitors?
Yeah, they consider themselves that, and but I try not to go into that, and
Mhm.
I am one of the leaders. I will say that just by the numbers and just by what most drivers and employers are telling me. Now,
Mhm.
I do talk to SAPs. The SAPs that reach out to me are the young ones that look for a mentor. And I go ahead
Mhm.
and I mentor them free, no charge, nothing like that. And I,
Not yet, anyway. If it gets
well, not yet.
overwhelming.
Yeah, so far.
I
And,
mean, if you guys want the mentoring, we'll like this. Eventually, this is
yeah,
gonna be the
we'll get a
lot.
mentor
We'll
program
bring,
going. Yeah.
yeah, we're gonna bring you all on the show. We're gonna guide you through that. That's definitely for future. But right now, I mean, old Mr. Irby here has got his hands full.
Yeah. Well, this is a really good question you mentioned because a lot of SAPs, well, I will go ahead and try to take them through the more advanced areas of being a SAP because you, as a SAP, you do have to go through your own training and graduate out of it. But
Mhm.
that's just the base part of it. When you
You,
get in, I take them through the real world applications.
you know, it's funny. Not funny. It's kind of depressing, but eventually,
Yeah.
last year, you and I were talking and communicating. And I told you I had rolled into college. Like I still have my MCC
Yeah.
user ID. Like I could still go to college. I could start, but because everything that happened, I had to put a hold on it. But I've been very interested in becoming a SAP counselor or a drug
Yes.
counselor myself, 100%. And I'm at the point where I'm just letting life take me. But
Yeah.
my paperwork is already at MCC. All I gotta do is just get the funding, not get the funding. I get student loans and stuff. Like I can get
Yeah.
approved for that. That it's still open. Like it's ready. That's all. It just like that. I can get back in it. But with the podcast and work, I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying, like, I want to make sure my priorities are set, and when
Yeah.
I'm ready,
Yeah.
when I'm ready,
That's right. That's right. Everybody
know,
listen to this. That's important.
then I will jump into doing extra, because I want to help people just like you, man.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Another thing that is can my mental health
Yes.
handle other people's
Yeah.
not problems, but like their sadness, their stress. Like I have to be
Yes.
able to handle my own mental health first before I can go out and help others.
That's right. That is so
So
true.
I'm in the process of rebuilding myself, relearning myself
That
before,
is so
and
true.
then once I'm done with that, then I'm gonna go and I'll look into counseling. Not look into it. Like again, I have a student ID. I'm ready, and I'll start doing it. But I want to make sure I'm ready first. Yeah.
That's right. That is so true. And that goes for anybody, especially truck drivers out there. You have to go and get yourself together and
Mhm.
always look at your own mental and physical and emotional condition. Always check on yourself. We can't just go out there and just deal with complicated issues out there in the world of helping others because you soon get extreme burnout very quickly,
Yep.
because you
Yeah.
whether we know it or not, our bodies and our mental attitude take on these problems and it's extra weight. Whether we know it or not, our subconscious does.
Yeah.
So, we want to go ahead and always stay physically fit mentally in order to be a person like that. So you brought out something that's really good. And this also applies to truck drivers, the
Yep.
drivers behind the wheel. You got a personal life to deal with. Now you got a hell of a professional life to deal with. And then you got
Hmm.
the emotional life to deal with about things that's happening on the road, your manifest, your bill of lading, etc. All these things, all these moving parts. So it'll be good for drivers to also have a, a, a respite, so to speak, in
Hmm.
order to deal with the mental load of being a truck driver here on the United States freeways. Yes.
I think on episode 3 we're gonna go, and I think it's gonna be a mental health podcast.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I because that Charles, get your rest for that time because
Yeah.
it's when it comes to mental health, man. Like I can share a lot of my stories. I'm sure you
Yeah.
definitely have a
Yeah.
lot of stories, even as a
Yes.
counselor yourself.
Oh, yeah.
We're
Yeah.
men, and
Yes.
funny thing is, I went to counseling yesterday, Charles,
Mhm.
and I talked about my podcast a little bit. I talked about a few other things going on, and I was also talking to my counselor about how. Remember when I was telling you about my friend that I asked for money from a few weeks ago, and he's like, "Dude, you never talked to me," and like I started reaching out. Well, we also went into, well, we don't want to bring our problems into their life, and
Right.
like bring them down. And I talked to my counselor about that kind of thing. And I think it just needs to be more normalized to have conversations about mental health, and as
Absolutely.
men, especially because we take a lot on our shoulder. But
Yes.
um,
That's where the rubber meets the road. Just being willing to go through all the hurdles to have this type of profession
mhm,
means that if you're going to go as far as Brad has just now, that means you're meant for it, because they give you a lot of roadblocks in order to go through it to see if you're competent or have the aptitude for it.
mhm.
So he went this far. He's going to be a hell of a sap, and it's going to be great because he
Hey, and
also has the knowledge of the physical knowledge.
I'm not rushing it either.
Yeah,
I know that SAP counselors are going to need, or I want to be able to be there to help you as well, and help not just you, Charles.
yes,
Like I want you to kind of guide me, but I want to be
yeah,
able to help drivers. Because I've been learning about this whole thing for the past 3 years. I want to say 3 years, 2 years, but it's been one hell of a journey. But I think, and next week I think we'll talk more about that journey. We'll add the mental health to it, and it's, yeah, I think next week's episode is going to be a big one.
it's going to be a
um
good one. Yes, we, we
mhm,
we need to go ahead and talk about this for the people all around the nation, is to know that we understand. Well, a lot of us SAPs understand what you're going through. That is absolutely necessary. We just can't be somebody sitting on a throne, looking at outside a window saying, okay, that guy, that guy, that guy, put him in
mhm,
this category. No, we have to have our own basic personal experience. We should know a reasonable amount about drugs and alcohol.
mhm,
The ABCs of drug and alcohol, and the differences between addiction and just recreational use.
mhm.
And we need to know the effects of type of drugs that would have on you as a driver on the road. Yeah.
Oh, speaking of recreational use, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No,
When
talk
I
to
was
me.
scrolling,
Talk to me. That's what we're doing.
yeah, when I was scrolling through your website, remember last week we were talking about CBD? I
Yeah.
found it very awesome because you updated your website as well. About the November 18th.
Yeah.
By the way, when I was scrolling down, let me put it back up for you here. You, my friend, actually talk about it right here.
Yeah.
Like you ain't talking about it. You're being like, when it comes to THC and like weed or CBD, like you really try to help people with that, and the knowledge of it, like so much so that you have it on your own website.
That's important. It is important to me that this information get disseminated, because there's too much disinformation and misinformation.
Mhm.
So, and CBD has been a big thing with my drivers. They're not out there just toking weed like they back in the 70s. They just, no, like that little guy, that little cartoon,
No,
keep on
back
trucking.
back in the 70s, they had the little white pill, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, well,
Pops was a gangster on the highway. Yeah, we need to
my
have his story out there. A lot of people probably
he
can
was a
really relate to him.
some of the stories like he's told
Yeah,
me. I'll give you one
yeah,
little sneak peek about my pops. Back when he was truck driving, he got a load from California to Oklahoma,
yeah.
and his boss at the time gave him a bag of dope, meth actually,
Hmm.
and he'll tell the story too. So he drove all the way from California to Oklahoma City nonstop nonstop. By the time he got there, his buddy met him. He opened the door. My dad's hands were locked around the steering wheel. He was so cramped up, and he had to help him out. And like, yeah,
That's chemicals. Yeah, that's
yeah,
that's what they did, Brad, and everybody out there
mhm,
listening to us. That's how it was in the 70s and the 60s. You know, it was the wild, wild west on the
mhm.
freeways,
I think
and
this was the 80s and 90s for him, but still,
yeah,
yeah.
and they had to get that load in. They had to
Mhm.
get it in. There was no rest periods. There was no mandatory rest, and the drivers ones that
Uh,
really got paid. So it was an incentive to be a tough guy on the road,
yep,
but those were really
harsh.
horrible, scary times for truck drivers also. You
Another
know?
story, and they got drug tested. Hell, my dad was telling me about this one time. Like I said, he's got more stories. I'm just giving you all a sneak peek of some of the shit he's going to be talking about. But he had this one time where he had to go take a drug test, and he bought a bag of pee, a bag,
Mhm,
a Ziploc
mhm.
bag, and he thought he could hide it. Well, he went to go do the drug test. Guess what happened? Right then and there, and he just had it all over him, and ended up failing. And like I'm not condoning his behavior, and he doesn't either. He knows what just
Yeah,
like you
yeah.
said, Charles. This was a different time,
We
and
just
it
being
was
honest. That's all we're doing is just
this.
we ain't playing with people out there. Yes, it was a
No, this
different time.
it was about money, and I'm gonna also tell you all something. My dad was a business owner for
Hmm.
30 plus years. He's always kept me fed, kept my family fed, kept a roof over our head. Hell, I'm
Yes,
staying
yes,
with him. So, regardless of his choices that he made in the past, he still didn't let the drugs consume him. Maybe his health.
yes.
Honestly, I will be serious about that. But he didn't let his drugs consume him when it comes to taking care of his family, providing, and doing all that. Obviously, he stopped. When he stopped truck driving and ran a restaurant, but he, yeah, he's got
It,
some stories.
it, you
So,
know, when you used to tell me stories about your pops, it reminded me of that Robert De Niro movie where they were all together, Pacino, and
hell yeah.
that movie where he was a truck driver. I think it was on Netflix, and
Mhm.
I watched that movie a couple of times, and it accurately described truck driving back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s. You
Yep.
know, and it was dangerous. They were getting hijacked
Mhm.
all the time. Truck drivers had to keep pistols on them themselves, and there was a
So
lot of
44.
illegality going on, and
Yeah.
it was almost a prerequisite that truck drivers had to be on poppers. You
Yeah.
had to. The government gave it a blind eye to it because they knew that truckers had to
For a
drive
while.
for
For a
16
while.
hours until they dropped. That's the way
Yeah.
it was.
Until the wrecks were getting serious, until more,
Yeah,
until like you had a mothers against truck driving. Like, yeah, these,
right.
some truck driver killed someone's kid, someone's family, to
Yeah,
where they started the movement, to where it got to the government, where they said, all right, enough is enough. And now
enough.
you got all these rules and regulations, because let's be real, the laws that we have today is from the drivers in the past. I don't care what you guys say. Like, it's from them fudging up, doing stuff like what my dad has probably done,
Yeah.
that has created what we have now. And, a lot of drivers today want to blame younger drivers for the laws. No, they might contribute a
Hmm.
small majority of it, but the laws for like
Yeah.
ELDs,
Yeah.
us drivers, when we had the logbooks, I ain't gonna
Right.
lie, I carry two logbooks. It was safer.
Yeah.
Two logbooks was safer
Hmm.
because you could take a nap when you wanted,
Yeah.
and you weren't running off a computer, and you actually found parking. I condone two logbooks. I'll say that loud, and I'm gonna get a lot of people like, but there's a lot of people that agree. And but because now that they have the ELDs, or because the two logbooks also contribute to the drivers also driving on drugs and running, the two logbooks all night long. Thus comes the ELDs. And the
Yeah.
ELDs have contributed to crashes because people are driving tired, racing against the clock because they don't know
Yeah.
a trip plan or whatever, or there's not enough parking. Like, there's another episode. Like, there's so much more.
Yeah. Exactly.
I could go on a tangent. There's a lot on that one. So
And you mentioned this, and it's so applicable for people right now, what you just talked about, of the stressors on drivers, on truck drivers to get the load in, even if they do have these areas where they can are mandated to have rest periods and etc. It's still a lot of stressors on drivers. So, a good SAP has to take that in consideration and know about these things with drivers. And there he can ascertain whether this guy is really just really getting high like hell on the freeway, or this guy is an addict, or if this guy, just got popped.
Well, here's one for you, Charles. As a SAP counselor, you should know the term functional addict.
Yes,
Those are the ones that they'll be high, but you won't know it.
exactly.
That they'll be able to get, but they can still get popped.
They can still get popped.
Yeah.
And a lot of truck drivers, that's where they fall into. The ones that have addiction, that's where they fall into. They're not going down the road with a needle hanging out their arm. They're not.
Well,
but,
we've already seen the biggest problem right now is marijuana. Like, I don't even think
Yes.
The heavier drugs is the biggest issue. The stats show marijuana has been the leading cause for failed drug tests.
Yes.
So, and the thing about marijuana is it does impair your vision. It can cause you to fall asleep, and it can be dangerous on the road. So I can see why, it's an issue of bringing it to the trucking industry, like making it legal. So,
Yes. But when you're a competent SAP consultant or SAP on with these particular drivers, you want to at least get the drivers to be familiar with tools they can use to help them with if they do have a condition going on, and let them be able to express to you briefly. You're not a doctor, and they're not patients, but be able to express briefly to get honest with you. That's important for drivers, because one of the purposes of a SAP is not just to go ahead and slap treatments on drivers and take them through the SAP process. Next, no, we want each and every individual driver to find out where their points of failure are and work on that,
Yep.
And so it's kind of important for them briefly to be able to talk to you one-on-one about stuff that's slightly personal. And they do that with me. I allow them to do that with me. I will take them into some questioning where they can do that with me.
You kind of develop a personal relationship.
Rapport.
With
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
Rapport. There you go. That's a
Rapport,
more
yeah.
professional rapport with them. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it helps.
Most of them, it helps. Most drivers want to be in compliance. They really do.
Most drivers understand they made a mistake.
They made a mistake,
and
they don't.
They learn that should be it.
That's it. But they just needed somebody to talk to for a brief moment, and they got somebody that's not going to just wag their finger at them. And so I do that with a lot of my drivers. I let them speak a little bit about what's going on, but also I take them through some methodical questioning that's to find out exactly what degree of use is going on with that particular driver, and I'm practiced enough and has enough experience. I could pretty much quickly get an idea most of the time of what I'm dealing with, and with cocaine use, I want them in front of somebody because with cocaine use, they've been doing it.
What about those drivers that do heroin? I can't imagine. I can't imagine somebody out there doing heroin. I'm surprised you haven't heard much about fentanyl. That's the big thing right now. You hear about truck drivers trafficking it, but actually, I'm glad no one. You don't hear. I want to look that up. What you can say something real quick. I'm gonna look this up.
Yeah, that's a good point. I want all the people out there listening to understand this. That's not a hot topic with drivers. The rate of my drivers getting popped with opiates is extremely low.
Yeah,
that's not a thing anymore.
I think always amphetamine and weed right now.
Is weed, some cocaine, but amphetamines.
Oh, here we go. It took me a minute,
You found
but
it?
I found one article, and this guy did a little bit of both. He did a little bit of cocaine and fentanyl before his Jersey house crash.
Mhm.
Wow.
Inside of
I think I've seen this crash,
the
but he was high
home,
on
where the
coke and
bedrooms in
fentanyl,
the
upper and a
back were the
downer.
dump-
Yeah.
Now let's go to New Jersey, where a 55-year-old truck driver suffered serious injuries in.
Oh.
Look at that damage.
Wow.
Total
This
demolish.
crash, this happened in South
Absolutely.
Brunswick early this morning. There was a family inside of that home. They
Oh.
were in bedrooms in the back when the dump truck crashed at least 20 feet into that home. News 4's Tracy Strahan has more from the scene.
So that's the reality of it right there,
That's
guys.
the reality of it.
Coming to you from Shelley Road. Where
That's
Look at that. That's why it's with my experience, Brad. When I hear cocaine, opiates, fentanyl in a report, I'm looking at treatment. I want them to get in front of somebody. No drug awareness course. No. I really want my drivers to get in front of somebody. And when they do, they argue and they raise hell. And they a lot of them say, well, screw you, I'm gonna find another SAP. And what can I do? They did not select me yet on the clearinghouse, so they can go. And but when a lot of drivers that they acquiesced and agreed to go to treatment, I finally talked them into it. They come back with so many compliments for me.
It can help them out.
That I helped them not only to get back into drug driving, but helped them with their life. A lot of them were so happy that I was tough with them in the beginning and made them go through this treatment if they wanted to drive again. And once they started going to their third week of classes and et cetera, in group sessions and group therapy, they ended up one of the leaders in group therapy. A lot of the other people were dependent on them to help them, listen to them share, because their experiences were so in depth and their wisdom was so profound, because they were changing their minds as a truck driver to be somebody that can be helping others. And my truck drivers come out of treatment as stars. Now I won't say rock stars. That's not the right word, but they come out as stars.
Just want to be a big rock star.
But,
Live in hilltop houses, driving 15 cars. The girls gone
I got him
easy and the
started,
drugs
y'all. I
come
got him
cheap.
started.
Yeah,
But,
I hear you, man.
They are so happy that somebody made them go to treatment in order to keep their profession. And they came, and they I don't hear from them again, unless it's those times where a lot of drivers come back and they got through 6 steps. One called me this week. I got through all 6 steps. I'm no longer on the program, and they're so happy. I remember, I think, Brad, you were one of them that did that, went through all the steps and got through with it. And
I went through a member tribe. I was there for almost a year, and I did not get all my follow-ups done. That's the only thing.
A lot of drivers don't get that far. They don't get that far.
Yeah.
And but
I mean, I can go get a trucking job right now and do my like it's not a big deal. I still have my CDL. It's just, I mean, I just got a $2 pay raise at my job. I'm getting promoted. Like I got things going on, so
yeah,
I'm okay, not driving right now. So
well, sometimes your higher power have you want to go through and do different things, and I think that's what your case was too.
Charles, I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, 10 years of driving, and we talked about this last year, man, or last week. Yeah. I loved it. It was an experience of a lifetime. I learned a lot, and I will always have a special place in my heart for it. But I'm ready to enjoy my life just off the road without the regulations. Again, once my mental health is better. So
yes. Let's just put it out there, plain and simple. Sometimes God has other ideas for you. And I think that's what he did with you. He wanted to promote you into a whole different area that's in his wheelhouse. Yeah. And that's what you're doing right now. And you're helping so many people, Brad.
I want more experience in other things, man. I don't want to be just known as a truck driver. I want to learn how to do other stuff.
Yeah.
Like melting metal, there's a whole science behind it that I'm learning, doing this, even the podcasting, doing video editing, I have more time to actually learn how to make myself better at it. And of course, other things that you and I have talked about privately, like I want to expand my knowledge, and of course the college. Like I want to, I don't want to just be stuck on one thing for the rest of my life. I want to
Yes.
be able to do more. So
So that's the important thing with a lot of people. If you got other avocations other than truck driving, you can also look into that and see where some growth can happen for your particular life. As always, take Brad as an example. Just follow this closely and see if there's other ways you can, if you want to graduate out of being a truck driver, or if you want to continue to be a truck driver and also expand your knowledge and your
expanding your knowledge.
wheelhouse. Yes,
Absolutely. Take a break if you want to. If you can,
absolutely.
there's listen, I was a firm believer. Like I was gonna be in trucking the rest of my life, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And I was like, but there are better things to do. Like and it gives me an opportunity to grow within myself. So
Yes, absolutely. And there's nothing better than have somebody that's been in the field to be on this screen right now to talk to other people that's currently in the field. You want to hear about, you're more apt to hear from somebody that's been through it
yeah.
instead of somebody that's pretending.
Well, wait till next weekend. We're gonna go. We'll talk about been through it, man.
Yes,
Because I'm gonna tell you the effects of driving and
yes,
how it led to my mental health and how I got into trouble and
yes.
and what led up to that. And there's a lot of stuff I haven't really talked about on my channel that I'm ready to open up about a little bit more
Good.
next weekend. So you guys want to be into
Personally, I
that
know a
podcast.
lot of stuff that he's talking about. He's talking to you guys, not me.
Yeah.
And I want to pace him. I want to pace him through this because it's so much. We'll go through 18 months and we'll just touch the surface with you. So we want to pace about all these particular episodes. And I'm talking to our audience across the nation and around the world. It has to do with truck driving and transportation. You guys are going through a lot mentally. This can be a pretty tough job emotionally also. So we want you guys to know that you're looking at a podcast of people that care.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm not supposed to have any opinion on outside issues and all this stuff.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
I when I ask you my opinion or what's your opinion, Charles, I normally try to keep it professional on your job.
As a SAP, they want you to stay in your pocket,
But this is where I come in, and I'm allowed to say my opinion because, well, I'm not a SAP yet. Like I right now I can say what I want without interfering or getting him in trouble. So just because what I say doesn't, he's not forcing me to say it. Like he doesn't know what's coming out of my mouth the next minute.
That's why we're the perfect pair. We're the perfect pair for the nation to keep track of our podcast watches every week. Because we're going to soon, I think Brad brought out the idea that we want to start being more inclusive with our audience, try to find a way to filter in more interactive feedback and questions from the audience, as long as, everything is PG, and with there's certain walls we have to erect concerning
and
to make this work properly.
We are on Spotify now. We will be on Apple Podcasts. I'm still working on that. I need an iCloud account. And we are on Amazon as well. There's several ways to listen to us. I will have our website down below, and everything we talked about. I will have links down below in the comments or in the description. We are on iHeartRadio and YouTube, of course. And here we're going to be streaming on TikTok as well. We're expanding. We're going to get our word out.
I hope so. As far as the SAP process, drugs and alcohol in drivers' systems, and now they get popped. What do they do? This is not brought out by anybody about this particular the SAP world. And thank you for your podcast that you had this idea of Revive and Drive to get this thing out there.
We did, Charles. It's been a year in the making.
Yeah.
This has been a year in the making, man. And
what's the percentage of transportation trucks doing the percentage of transportation of goods and services in the United States? Huge percentage. Are we at 50 or are we above 50%?
there's 3.7 million drivers.
Look at that. Look at that. Everything you get from Subway sandwiches to toilet paper is brought in by drivers. Now,
And the cool thing,
yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
and who cares about drivers? Brad, who is giving a rat's butt about drivers? This podcast does, and we're the podcast that want to care about the consuming public with transportation and getting all your goods and services to you safely.
Absolutely.
So what does this world entails? It entails SAP, SAP, and all the things that go in with it. So it's needed out here to have a SAP process to make sure our drivers are taken care of concerning drugs and alcohol. It's no longer the wild, wild west. There's a lot of rules and regulations are got drivers strapped down. You know, Brad, this is something you've been talking about a while of having all this convoluted weight on you as a driver. All these are rules and regulations, and plus trying to make a living as a driver.
Yeah, and with all that weight going from a driver to a non-driver, it can lead to a major breakdown if not taken care of correctly. And I'll share my story on that next week. Absolutely. The and you guys will see here when we get, maybe we'll have some drivers out there who have failed for SAP and maybe want to share their story of addiction. If you guys aren't afraid, I'll even blur. You guys can do audio only. If you don't want your face being shown, we can make it audio only, and you can just talk about it, and we'll love to hear, and hopefully you can inspire and help other drivers out there that have that might be thinking of going against their mental illness and picking up something, anything, any type. So, and hopefully your story will sway them to go the other way.
Yes, if we figure out ways with this podcast, if you want to keep your anonymity and want to have your ID or your information private, we figure out ways to do that. We want to open this thing up to drivers, truck drivers, and other drivers, and drivers and people in all the modes of transportation. There's airline pilots and people in the railroad industry. There's people that's driving the subways, the FTA. There's people all in all modes of transportation that needs a podcast like this where they can call in, ask questions, tell their story, so things can be shaken out publicly and people get more awareness of the stressors that transportation is putting on the particular operators. This can be a tough job, and we just can't kick them to the curb because they got caught with drugs and alcohol in their system. We want people to get well. So in order for them to get well, we got to start treating them in a whole different way instead of beating up on them. Let's try to understand them. And Brad was the one that really advocated for you guys heavily off camera. So really give him a good hand clap right now, privately.
Hey, listen, when I appreciate that, Charles. I really do. When I was on the side, I was like, how do I have this big channel and not know any of this information? That's why I told myself, never again. Like, I don't want another driver out there having to go through what I went through and not know it. So that's why I pushed myself so hard to try to get this info. Here's one for you, Charles. You're talking about the airline pilots and the like the railway workers and all that.
Yeah, flight attendants, everybody. Yes.
Yeah. Well, before we close up the show, but what about Uber drivers? Lyft. I mean, I know they don't have to go through the SAP, but
that's a good one.
Think about it. What about rideshare drivers that might be using drugs? That's something we can talk about in the future. Any type of transportation, and they're not
transportation.
They're not
people to call in about this. Yes.
Yeah, but like maybe someone can share a story like, oh man, I got picked up and this driver was high as hell, man.
Yeah. But that particular area right now, the Department of Transportation with the U.S. government, they're not recognized because you have to operate a vehicle that's at least 26,000 pounds. So
isn't that crazy how that works though? Because a car, I mean, there's more car wrecks than our truck wrecks.
Yeah.
I mean, they can go to more places than a semi truck can.
Yes.
They can like literally I don't know how to use this word without YouTube censoring us, but the thing that happened around December, or it was in New Orleans. Oh no, not New Orleans. Was it New Orleans? It was an attack. We'll just say an attack where somebody took their vehicle and drove it through people. Yeah.
Oh,
You remember what happened recently?
yes.
And it's happened before, it was bad.
They went around the
Um,
barriers and everything. Yeah, that was bad.
yeah,
That was bad.
yeah.
And that was just somebody in transport. He was a taxi driver, or what was
I
whatever
we'll
was going
we'll,
on with
we'll look
him.
at that and we talk about,
Right.
but like, why, a lot of times drivers are very concerned and pissed off that, people in cars aren't regulated as much as somebody in a semi truck. Yes, a semi truck is a rolling missile basically, but a car can do, like, there's more cars out there, and you could see a semi truck driver with a flat tire get dinged, get in trouble, but you see a car driving down the road with a flat tire, brakes, or a window missing or something, and then the police don't really, they don't mess with them too much. You might get a few states that are like, yeah, we're gonna write you a ticket, but they just kind of get away with what they want, So as long as their car's registered and insured, they don't care.
Well, I'm going to have to get ready to get off, but this has
Yeah.
been a really good one, and we're going to talk a little bit more this evening without the microphones on, etc. Because
All right.
we went over to a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and we want to start getting feedback now because we went over so much stuff about what other drivers are experiencing, like with Uber and these type of things. These particular drivers are not under the FMCSA, so they need to be talked about, and they want information also because they're part of transportation. We need to, and we're going to talk more about marijuana and the effects of marijuana because
All
that's the
drugs.
big, all drugs. Yes.
We're gonna get my dad on next week, and also get into mental health and as well. Charles, earlier today when we were talking, we are like, yeah, it'll be kind of a short podcast. We're both kind of tired, And again, another long one. Cause I said we just go with the flow of things, and it was a great one.
America, we just go with the flow. We don't have just a particular criteria we go by. We just shoot the gun and we hit the lanes. That's all we do, and we find out by us doing a podcast with you, America, like this, that there is much more to be talked about, to the point where we need to start getting feedback from the viewing public. There's some stories you guys need to tell publicly, and there's a lot of things because we are just now hitting the other modes of transportation. We want to concentrate on the FMCSA, the truck drivers. But boy, there's a lot that stewards, the old word, airline stewardess, what they call flight attendants now.
Yep.
Pilots need to talk to us. They got a lot of things to say. There's a lot of railroad workers that got a strange way that the FMCSA is, the federal government is regulating them. There's a lot of different areas. And then there's this new area that you brought up, Brad, about Uber and Lyft, and drivers are loaded, and will that become part of the FMCSA type thing?
I don't think it will ever be the FMCSA, but it's a good topic to just talk about.
Yes,
open for discussion.
And marijuana. Everybody wants to know about marijuana. Is it a hallucinogen? I don't have a problem with weed. We want to hear from the public on that, and we're going to disseminate the information on what really matters, what the FMCSA says about it. That's what matters. So
one of the reasons why we focus more on weed than a lot of the other stuff is, one, you two don't really like us talking about the other stuff too much. And even weed, they're kind of iffy. But not only that, 56% of the drivers who are on the SAP program is because of marijuana. So that is the biggest issue. If the 56% was on cocaine or meth or any type of amphetamines, benzos, we would be talking about that more. But I feel like marijuana, a lot more information needs to go out for that, because that's what the big topic is, and the majority of the fails are.
And a lot of things, we want to make sure that get the word out about me. And thank you for Brad for getting people that no longer are working because they got slapped with a FMCSA violation. they most likely don't have a whole lot of money in their pocket at this moment. So I only charge $400 for my SAP fee. That's with Zelle, $415 with Cash App, and it's pretty reasonable in all the other uh, pay services that you can use. I try to keep things low because typically you're not working right now. You out there Ubering until you can get this SAP situation straightened out and get back to truck driving. You don't need to be price gouged right now. And also I want to reiterate that me and Brad, we are gatekeepers also. We're not just out here advocating for every and everything in the world concerning this.
No,
We
absolutely
want
not.
drivers to be out here safe, driving
Mhm.
safe. So that's one of the huge pillars of our broadcast, is to be safe drivers out here, and also drivers don't get their say. They don't know anything about a SAP violation, the SAP process. They get angry. They want to play games. They want to lie. And because they basically, not because they're rotten people, it's because they
They're
don't
ashamed.
understand the process where they can come to Mr. Charles and relax.
Hmm.
Because
Absolutely.
people like Brad, I'm preaching right now, but drivers like Brad, in the history he had of driving, that was a long history of stellar service. A lot of people were bragging. A lot of employers didn't wanted Brad, and that needs to be known by everybody that there are drivers like him that deserve respect because they knew the process and held their line with the process, and they wanted to know more about the SAP process along with that. So they're some of the diamonds in the industry. They really serve the transportation freeways well. We need truckers. SAPs need to understand that. Treat the truckers well. Don't beat up
Mhm.
on them. We need these guys or we're going to starve.
Absolutely. Hey, can I just make a note?
Oh, absolutely.
I still find it very, very funny. I told you this last time we talked, when we first met, how your square for the call in for the credit card, debit card is 420. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Every time it's just
Yo,
ironic.
yeah, yeah, I
It's
get it. I didn't mean it that way, guys.
no, I know. Just so you do 400 for Zelle, but if
But
you
that's a good way
call,
for you to remember it, though, isn't it?
yeah,
Everybody out there,
if
yeah.
you call and do the debit card on the phone through Square, it's 420, and those Square fees be killing, man. I tell
Yeah,
you what, same with
drivers
Cash App.
they don't need to be price gouges in order to get
Yeah.
their CDL straightened out. What they get popped with their SAP violation, they don't need to be price gouged. Most
Mhm.
drivers don't need to go to extensive rehabilitation. Somebody that's a SAP, that's a good interviewer, know what to listen for, able to use motivational interviewing techniques. They
Mhm.
can quickly ascertain whether this guy is a danger or this woman is a danger on the road or not, very quickly, just by
Mhm.
using these techniques that advanced drug and alcohol counselors use, motivational interviewing and etc. like that. So I'd use that and I could quickly ascertain, duh. I even tell some drivers when I listen to them, I think you need to pick another SAP. I'm not going to tell you you shouldn't be a driver because that's unconstitutional. I can't tell you that.
Yeah,
But in a way, I'm telling you, please find another occupation because
and
my
they're out there.
spidey senses are going.
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely. Well, Charles, I think even though we were expecting a short one, we did another long one, and it was another great podcast. This was episode 2. I'll get posted tomorrow. But everybody, I want to thank you all for watching
thank you,
and
guys.
listening to Revive and Drive podcast. My name is Brad Larson, aka Big Trucker B. My co-host here, Charles Irby with Focus 7 LLC. He is the SAP guy, and you guys check him out on YouTube as well. Charles the SAP, as well as me, Big Trucker B. And again, go listen to us on if you don't want to watch the video, listen to us on Spotify. Listen
Yeah.
to us on Amazon, on Audible, and iHeartRadio, and we will have more streaming platforms out shortly.
And
And
when you need a SAP, call me. When you need a
make sure you
SAP,
guys.
call me. I answer the phone, and
He does.
I try to. That's a big thing for a SAP is to be accessible. Because when you call in the SAP, you got a violation. That's a stressful time for drivers. They're trying to grab stuff and find out who to call, and I don't understand this SAP process. They need somebody like me that got experience that could take them through it calmly.
And what's your number there, Charles?
You can call me at 404-620-1944.
There you go. And here soon we'll have a number where you guys can call in once we get that all set up for live as well.
And thanks for Brad. Thank you, Brad. Thank you. Any other host wouldn't be as good as it is now because you have the experience of hauling butt down the freeway. You understand the ins and outs. So it's good to have a host that understands this. It makes it a lot easier for me.
Oh man, it's been a pleasure. Just working on this whole thing, this whole project. It's been a pain in the ass, like getting my studio, getting everything. It's a year in the making, and we're still going forward, and it's turning out quite well. I would say so myself. So, all right, everybody. Well, we're going to end the show here. And again, thank you all for listening, and be sure to check us out. I will have the links to the websites as well as everything we talked about down below in the description, and we'll catch you all next weekend. Have a nice night.
All right. See you guys.
All right.